After that, lessons began as they normally would. Yet Holmes was still quite grim as he sat in his assigned seat. What's the matter with him? He seems so distracted. The boy detective was normally focused on the blackboard at the front of the room, but today his eyes were fixed to his notes. Something must be on his mind.
Whiteley. Miss Whiteley!
Yes, sir?
Do you know the answer?
Dash it! I haven't listened to a word he said. It's what happens when you're ogling the cute boy in class. I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
Are you troubled with something? I appreciate that you're quiet, but I would find myself more depressed if it's because your mind is elsewhere.
For Mr. Mackenzie to find himself depressed was kind. He looked as though all the happiness in the world had left him. And to again be kind in my own words, he never seemed to have much happiness to begin with. I mean, accurate. Dang, he got roasted twice. I'm really very sorry, sir.
Then since you're sitting next to her, would you care to answer, Holmes? Yes, sir. Queen Elizabeth I remained unwed for the entirety of her life. Her father was Henry VIII, and her mother Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was initially a lady-in-waiting to Henry VIII's first wife, then she later was to become his second. Correct. Have a seat.
Drat, I even knew the answer to that.
Thank you, sir. Are you lost in thought in the middle of class, Miss Whiteley?
But you weren't any different, were you?
Yes, except I happen to be clever. I could ponder 1,000 things and still keep my ears pricked for a lecture. Is that not par for the course for a student?
Par for the course, of course, of course. I feel like such a fool now. I was so rightly ashamed that I wanted to hide away from my peers and vanish. I feel you, girl. I was grateful that nothing else that could cause me shame happened for the rest of the day. Holmes approached me after school.
Miss Whiteley, Watson and I are to visit a mansion that was robbed the other day. We received a request from the master yesterday. He wants us on the case.
Do you think it's from one of those mimicking the gentleman thief?
Most likely. From what we've heard, the victim, Ernest Phelps, had his late grandmother's prized earrings stolen. If you wish to prove your worth as a detective, then come with us. What's this? Holmes? Asking out a lady? Why, I didn't know you had it in you. No truer mysteries ever begged to be solved than this one. Watson. It was a joke, Holmes. I only say it, Emily, because he's been very, very curious about you. She's no detective from where I'm standing. Speaking plainly, the method used to catch the Queen's cat relied more on luck than it did true detective work.
Yeah, but you're still intrigued. Admit it. But we did catch her, so we did what we were tasked as detectives.
I fail to understand why you only care for the results. If you think yourself so qualified, why not prove it by solving the next case with your brain? Solving every case with intuitive rubbish will only help you so many times.
His tone intended no bite, but the sting of fangs bared still lingered. Fair enough. And I would be delighted to join you two in solving the case. We shall make for an unstoppable team, I'm sure. In fact, a proverb is brought to mind that applies to this very scenario. Your eyes see more than your forehead.
Is that a real proverb? 4 eyes see more than 2.
I suppose I've heard it said in that way as well.
Miss Whiteley, you understood me when I said to solve this next one using your brain, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. And I will be using it expertly to ease the mind of our dear victim, you see. We can't wait another minute. Let's be off!
That's a good thought. A detective's work is more than solving the case, but tending to those who suffered from evil as well. You swallow pretty words far too easily, Watson. Oh, but right. Then you'll be investigating this copycat crime, won't you, Emily?
Well, yes. Is there a problem with that, Watson? You seem very out of sorts all of a sudden. Watson expressed a nervousness, a sudden flush of anxiety that reflected doubt. In me? Or in inviting me? It was too brief and too vague to know for certain.
Never mind. It was silly. And Holmes, what about that message from Lupin Jr.? Would it not be more prudent to go to the Queen's house and prevent him from stealing the necklace? I'd rather you not concern yourself with someone merely copying his actions. I will go to the Queen's house in the evening, Watson. Something has compelled me, and compelled me irresistibly, to investigate this copycat first. Are the stolen earrings really as important? You're certain? In a sense. It is speculative on my part, but I feel... Bah. It's merely an observation of mine. If you feel more drawn to the Queen's house case at present, then by all means go. I just won't be going with you. I'm not drawn to it. I more said that for you, since you aren't the most fond of Lupin Jr. I don't want you to distract yourself with other cases till this is all but dismissed.
I'm trying to figure out if they're both trying to get alone with Emily, or if they really are just... I don't know. I'm suspicious.
I would never dismiss a case over personal feelings. To do so would be to abandon a client, and I, for one, count myself amongst professionals. Yet you aren't professional enough to hide your disgust. It's all been a bit childish, you know. What is it about him that struck a nerve? Is it that you're both successors? That he never is compared to his dad the way you are? Oh! Yes! That's it! That's it exactly. Have I hit it?
You're completely off. Holmes isn't the type to compare himself to others. Holmes?
We're wasting time. We'd best get a move on.
Ah! Holmes, wait!
Before we go, Emily, you should tell Pendleton where you're going. We wouldn't want him to worry.
Oh yes, I'd completely forgotten about him.
That poor man. He must spend most of his nights sick with worry because of how often you forget him.
Not most of his nights. A tenth of them, perhaps, but really, I try to tell him where I'm going more often than not.
A tenth is still more than enough, Emily.
Sheesh. I made a brief return to the mansion, after which I accompanied Holmes and Watson to Mr. Phelps' home. Pendleton was not available, which was unfortunate given my recent banter with Watson, but I did leave a message with Alicia regarding my whereabouts to pass along to him. This was not to be my last engagement with misfortune for the day, however.
How? This is odd. It should be around here. Watson, as you have no doubt noticed, we passed through here earlier.
Oh no! You haven't got us lost, have you?
My word. I know where it is. Leave it to me. This is the way, cried a certain someone. That they did, and with so much vigor, too. Ugh. Sorry, you two.
No need to be glum, dear. Everyone makes mistakes.
Aw. You're so pure-hearted about it that it almost makes me feel worse.
My carriage passed through this area on the way to the academy, but one misdirection was all it had taken for London to turn foreign. To be lost within a city that should have been familiar gave me a dreadful unease.
I didn't mean for this to happen, Emily. I was so fired up when I learned you were joining us, but I ended up doing more harm than good with it.
My unease for the situation was minimal, and done away with entirely, when I saw how he felt about having been the cause. A protective instinct was roused within me. I should say that no harm was done at all. Taking a leisurely stroll like this is good for the legs. An exercise demands something sweet as a reward. Perhaps I'll ask Pendleton for some dessert after the case is solved.
With so much spirit, you extend your hand to help Miss Whiteley, and yet he's still not alleviated, and you're still a glutton.
But I am helping. Knowing that dessert is waiting is a wonderful alleviator.
Duly noted. Now, once we go back to the main street, we can right ourselves again. Holmes. I couldn't ask for better friends.
Isn't that Lupin over there? Lupin! And it was. On the sight of a familiar face when lost was freedom for the soul. I waved for his attention.
Well, hello. What brings you around? Oh no! Ow!
Very much in his character, Lupin tripped and tumbled to the ground immediately upon seeing us. The clumsiest cat burglar. Because this is his Clark Kent persona. He even has the glasses. You didn't twist anything, did you? Perhaps I should have thought better of crying out so suddenly.
Oh, that hurt. Please, I'm fine, Miss Whiteley. Really. See? My spectacles are safe and sound.
Good to hear. If those are safe, then surely there isn't a scratch on you. How do those 2 points even connect?
I meant to ask this right away, but is there anything that brings you here?
Yes, as it happens. And does it ever make us glad to see you, Lupin? We've been making our way toward the mansion belonging to a certain gentleman named Mr. Phelps, you see. Trying to, rather. One might say a mansion isn't hard to find, but they've never had to find his. Though I suppose they might also say we're lost.
Phelps? Might this be Mr. Ernest Phelps?
It is. Do you know him?
I know of him, and where he lives. His home is just at the corner, where this street meets Oxford Street.
You're quite familiar with the area, Lupin.
It's a coincidence. I know it from when I lost my way before. Are you quite all right now? I've not done anything suspicious. You won't miss it, I'm sure. Good day.
Wait, Lupin!
Watson desperately held Lupin by the shoulder.
Are you really so content with leaving us to get lost again? What if we were to fall victims to some criminal mastermind? Would you do that to a fellow schoolmate? Take us there, please. Once I've been shown the way, I won't forget it.
But your case has nothing to do with me. Bother, this always seems to happen to me.
Watson, though he was in the position of beggar, kept his grip and tugged at Lupin's arm, bringing his image closer to that of a hooligan badgering an innocent boy to tears.
All I wanted to do was
It was the Queen's house, correct? Though I see you were denied entry.
Huh?
Lupin's mouth hung agape.
How did you know?
Simple observation can do wonders. See that white powder at the tips of your boots? Gypsum, most likely.
I'm just gonna make a note of that for when we run into Lupin. Oh my goodness, so much poison! There we go.
That is used exclusively in the floors of a select few marble buildings in London, with the historic Queen's house being one of them. Now, I noticed no such powder was present during lessons. Yet all of this can be set aside for the obvious. The Queen's house is located on Trafalgar Road, and where have we met? Why, along that very road.
But that doesn't explain how you know he could not enter the Queen's house.
Doesn't explain, or did you simply not consider the obvious? No ordinary citizen could enter now due to the police guarding it against our gentleman thief. You had all that just by looking at the tips of his boots? I didn't know you observed him so.
Indeed. It certainly comes as a surprise to me.
Don't misinterpret my actions. Human observation is essential to proper reasoning and analysis. There isn't any particular reason for a man of such exceptional maladroitness to stand out, other than his enrollment in the detective's course, whilst possessing a ring from Her Majesty, which is more often dropped on the ground than securely on his finger.
Wait. He's got a ring? But he's a burglar. Did he dupe Her Majesty? Huh. Alright.
No reason at all.
My goodness. I'm a terrible, terrible mess.
Now, you're being too harsh. He doesn't drop his ring because he wants to. And since he's found it every time it's been dropped, he's more than proven his worth as a detective.
Miss Whiteley.
A good detective can't go around solving cases he's made himself. He's still the one at fault.
Not you too, Watson.
It's kind of you to defend me, but they're right.
Here's something that might bring you some cheer. You couldn't enter the Queen's house alone, but were you to become the fourth in our investigations, then they would surely permit you entry.
Why? I've already decided to go home.
You forget, my friend, that we're in need of a guide. So come, show us the way.
Wait! Watson!
My apologies for this, Lupin, but do come with us for a while.
Why me?
Watson, ever merry at his victory, had wrapped his arm around Lupin's shoulders and forced them forwards to a distractingly bold walk. Holmes and I kept to something more appropriate as we followed. It was in this manner, this circumstance, this half-nervous, half-pleased air that we four came to be the ones to investigate the case of the stolen earrings. Hello, Ernest. What a lovely study you have.
It was my grandmother's earrings, bequeathed to me upon her passing, which were stolen. She was of noble birth, but she lived a humble life and had few accessories to her name. It pains me to know that the only thing she left me was stolen. It brings me great shame.
You mustn't speak so poorly of yourself, Ernest.
Ernest Phelps, the master of the house, was a handsome man who impressed a quiet respectability to his guests. Yet it was now that he had been equipped with a solemn air, and his sharp features now appeared gaunt from a sudden and cruel depression. Even the encouragement of Frank Sutton, a fellow he met through their mutual love of hunting, did not change him. Wasn't Sutton one of my parents' friends? Man, I should have kept note of that.
I should like to inquire more about these stolen earrings.
Permit me to answer for him.
Mr. Sutton worried to such a grave extent for his friend's condition that he urged him to sit.
I've seen his earrings once just before he intended to put them back in the safe. They're a timeless design made of silver. Each one is befitted with a blue gem at its center. I must apologize, as I am not studied on gems and cannot say what type it is for certain. Ernest only told me at the time that they belonged to his grandmother and served as a memento. I never thought them to be so precious that someone would steal them.
It baffles me also. The earrings hold value only in spirit. They would not fetch a high price in any market. The officers who arrived left immediately after hearing my story and asking a few questions, never so much as attempting a serious investigation.
That's unbelievable. Would you tell me when exactly you noticed the earrings were stolen one more time?
Of course. It was yesterday in the early afternoon. I was scheduled to have a meeting in the drawing room below at 1 o'clock, so I was downstairs. During the meeting, I had need of a promissory note regarding some land and went to retrieve it from the safe. That was when I discovered they were stolen. I had my maid ring Scotland Yard post-haste.
Who was present during this discovery?
Oh.
2 others were here for the meeting. My business partners, Orlando Baum and Harris Hodnett. Both had come to make a copy of the note.
Okay.
There was my maid as well, Anna Hunt. Including me, that makes 4 people.
Okay. So there's 4 people present. And you arrived after the robbery, Mr. Sutton.
Yes, I forgot to give him a hunting book when I visited the day before, so I was set to visit again sometime in the afternoon. It was then that I happened upon Anna at the front entrance. As she was looking very frantic, I called for Scotland Yard in her place.
I was so grateful he arrived when he did. He kept us sound before the Yard's arrival, as well as inspected for any other stolen articles.
Well, sounds like you have a real good mate, Mr. Phelps.
Not at all. I only did what was right.
And your inspection concluded with nothing else stolen other than earrings, Mr. Sutton.
Nothing else, but I did notice the window of the room was conspicuously open.
Okay.
If only I planned my visit a little earlier, then I may have caught the scoundrel.
I noticed Mr. Sutton clench his fist in frustration.
Thank you. My first instinct upon this testimony is that the culprit was someone inside the mansion at the hour of the theft, but there is still more investigating to be done.
We were each searched by the police, of course. No one was in possession of the earrings.
When did you last open the safe?
4 days ago. I remember it plainly since it was when I showed the earrings to Frank.
Was this during the day?
No. I hadn't returned home until evening, so it was quite dark.
Did anything seem amiss with the safe?
No. Not that I noticed.
All right. This is my last question. Are you the only one who knows how to open the safe?
Without a doubt.
Very well. Then please show us the room where the theft took place.
Mr. Phelps now read twice the exhaustion, so it was Mr. Sutton and Anna who guided us to the study. We ascended to the first floor and through the hall until we entered a corner room. The window, which I recalled from our questioning, was positioned in such a way that the sunlight was generous. Okay, so this is the study. We were probably in the sitting room then. What a nice safe. The safe in question was embedded within one of the bookshelves along the wall.
This room serves as Master Ernest's home office. It has been left undisturbed since the robbery. Ah, but I have closed the window. The wind is rather vulgar today, you see.
Thank you.
Anna volunteered that she was in the kitchen when the theft was discovered, having been tidying the drawing room table after serving tea to her master's guests. The robbery appeared to have as great a shock on her as it did Mr. Phelps. She did not reveal it, and she held to a professional tone with praiseworthy composure, but even then she could not hide the underlying unrest of one disturbed by recent events.
Does Mr. Phelps always work here?
He does. Mind, he's been working in the downstairs living room every evening for a week. This study is the brightest room in the mansion during the day, but the electric light is broken, so the change is only until that's been repaired. It's very odd to me. We did a routine inspection of the lighting just last month, so I don't understand why it's broken so soon after.
Alright, a broken light in the room, which is unusual. Is there an alternative for when he must come in at night for some other business?
Master Ernest is a collector of ornamental lamps, as it happens, so he does use those when he must.
My, the glasswork is beautiful! And the colors! Blue, green, and purple!
It is, Emily, but I don't believe now is the best time to be so excited.
Of course. My apologies. Wait, then what about what we heard earlier? I couldn't help but feel that something wasn't right. Trying to think what she might have noticed about that. Oh, it was something he said. Oh, slipping my mind. I can't remember.
It's always something with you. Now, be certain to wear your gloves before touching anything in the room.
Holmes promptly began his investigation, leaving me to do my own. Great. What should I inspect? The window. I went to inspect the window.
Mr. Sutton, is this the window that was left open during the robbery?
Yes, it is.
Watson took care when opening it.
I'm also curious. You didn't arrive till after the theft, but did the yard search you as well?
Ernest insisted that it wasn't necessary, but I was searched, yes.
Whilst the two conversed, I approached the window and scanned the outside view. There was a tree so large it comfortably snuggled against all 3 levels of the home. Isn't this funny? Mine isn't as big, but I have this exact tree at my mansion.
Miss Whiteley, the times in which I'm interested in your tales of home gardening are few and far between.
It wasn't particularly relevant, is it? Beg pardon. I don't see anything wrong with the window. The glass is neither broken nor cracked.
Is it possible to use that tree to climb in and out of here?
Absolutely not.
Oh? Why?
It's easy to climb up such a tree, but climbing down one is an ordeal if I've ever described one. I tried once when I was little, but of course I'd become stuck on the way down. It was awful.
I'm sure it was.
Holmes, appearing deep in thought, wordlessly looked outside the window as I had. What should I inspect? Oh. Safe now. I'm glad I can do both. I wanted to do both. So, they could have climbed into here, but not out. And then there's the thing with the lights. I went to inspect the safe. Oh, Lupin's still here, I forgot.
Do you mind if I go home now?
Nonsense! You're here, so let's inspect the safe as a team. What if a clue were missed because you weren't here?
I suppose. A safe with a dial lock must have been quite expensive. If you make a mistake when turning the dial, you have to start all over again. They're miserably difficult to open.
How would you know that? But a safe should be difficult to open, shouldn't it? There was no evidence of forced entry. Could the criminal have known the combination? Holmes is so clever that it wouldn't surprise me if he's already solved the mystery.
Ouch!
A weighted thud and the shuffle of paper gave my inspection pause. The source came as no surprise at all. It was Lupin, positioned awkwardly on the floor the way one would be after a fall, with documents from a nearby desk decorated around him. Lupin! Are you all right? What happened?
Any injuries? That was quite the fall.
I kneeled to his side. Mr. Sutton, who had briefly retired to the hall, came to assist him. Anna peered in from the doorway with alarm.
I dropped my ring beneath the desk, so I went to pick it up, and when I tried to stand again, I bumped my head.
You poor thing. And look at you. Your spectacles are nearly ready to fall right off. No cracks in them, I hope.
Miss Whiteley, I hope that isn't your first concern.
Thank you. Very much. It hurts.
My God, Lupin. Again? Again?
We'd best put some ice on that bump. Anna, would you be kind enough to help?
It would be my pleasure.
It should be a bit faster if I take him straight to the kitchen.
Sorry.
The 3 took their time when descending the stairs. I worry if he's all well in the head. Are you saying that just because he bumped his head, or... Poor Lupin. He's committed to his role. It's probably because he can't see with those glasses on.
Emily, I know that your heart is in the right place, but phrasing it as such in front of anyone else would cause a misunderstanding.
Would it? Oh, yes. Yes, it certainly would. That was awfully rude of me.
Of all the blasted things, he's thrown the whole crime scene into disarray.
Thus it was the remaining three, Holmes, Watson, and myself, who took to restoring the scattered paperwork. There we are. I think we've done a fine job collecting all the papers.
There was more than I expected. Why must I waste my time with this trifle? My time here is limited as it is. Take it easy, Holmes. We forced him here, so we ought to tidy up after him. We forced him here. Would that not be you?
Hush, you two. We're finished now, so there's no harm done.
I'm impressed you're able to act as carefree at the scene of a crime as you are anywhere else. No, really, I am. I am just not the same.
Rushing won't do you any good. Now, I'm gonna place them back on the I stopped. A certain paper stood out strongly from the rest. Look at this. This one is different to the others.
How so?
So as not to ruin potential evidence, did I separate this smaller, wrinkled piece with extreme delicacy. I don't see anything written here, but look at these strange indentations.
Watson, you know what I want. Uh-huh, I certainly do.
Watson reached into his bag for a black stick. Is that charcoal?
Yes. If you gently rub it over paper that has marks from something being written on top of it, then you can see whatever was written.
And he did precisely that once the charcoal was in his hands.
I've done it once before, but I botched it by pressing too hard against the paper. It was so black I couldn't read anything. This is it!
Holmes's reaction was immediate, and when we saw for ourselves, so were Watson's and mine's.
It's talking about there, right?
Where is there?
I knew it. It's completely in line with my hypothesis.